I thank you for joining us this evening. And I have had the chance to meet many of you, but my name is Susan Smith, and I am the Associate Director for Leadership Formation with Mercy Education. And I am honored to welcome Colleen Bonar to join us this evening. We've been having some really lively conversations about strategic planning. Before I formally introduce Colleen, I'd like to begin with a prayer. And I live in Philadelphia. I live on the East Coast. And today is our second day of real spring. It is beautiful here. The sun is shining and the sky is blue. So when I was looking for a prayer, I feel like I'm really in spring. So I hope you don't mind that my prayer is called Springtime. So if we could just take a moment and gather ourselves. O dancer of creation, the world awakens to an urgent call to grow. In the hidden recesses of my wintered spirit, I too hear the humming of your voice, calling me, wooing my deadness back to life. My soul yawns, stretches, quickens, as the energy of spring revives my weariness. I sit with wonder, observing the steady activity of downy woodpeckers and newly yellowed finches. I do so wait with the avid attention of a child's first look, savoring the colors and shapes of Earth's loveliness. As the filtering patterns of early sunlight lift the shade of green in every growing thing, I enter into spring's unleathered words of life. For a while, my doubts, anxieties, and worries become like chapters in some ancient book whose text no longer claims my full attention. I am content to sit, watching spring turn the pages of this animated publication, eager to discover the invigorating story reflected in my own springtime revelation. Tell me, wise awakener, why is it easier to believe in a stem of new grass or the opening bud of a fresh purple crocus than it is to believe in the greening of me? Amen.
Amen.
So as I said, I'm so honored to introduce Colleen Bonar, and many of you have met Colleen. She is one of our board members, but she really brings a wealth of background and expertise to us. Colleen is a veteran educator who has spent her career collaborating with students, teachers, administrators, and board members to support their learning goals. She spent over 40 years as a classroom English teacher, mentor teacher, and director of theater. She has also served as a curriculum coordinator, and in her role of educational consultant, has collaborated with numerous public school boards of education to support them in articulating their district goals. She has also worked in schools to facilitate the strategic planning process, as well as guided the implementation of their plan. As I said, Colleen is a current board member where she continues to engage in working with others to support the teaching and learning of our Mercy students. Colleen, thank you again for joining us.
You're welcome.
And I will turn this over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure being with you. Thanks for adding about an hour onto your very busy days. I greatly appreciate it. What I hope we will accomplish after we're together for this this period of time, I'd like you to know and be able to know the difference between setting goals and the strategic planning process. So they're two different things, and your organization has a lot of goals. I know they do. They have goals from maybe the Mercy self-study, maybe there's goals from your accreditation organization who accredits you. So there's a lot of goals around. And I need you to know the difference between strategic planning and goal setting so that there's not all of these dozens of goals floating around and then we achieve none of them. So that's the first thing I'm hoping we'll know the difference. Secondly, is huge, is to understand the role of the board, the role of your leadership teams, and the role of your faculty and staff in the strategic planning process. Those groups each have a particular role that's very important, and we'll talk a little bit about that tonight. Also, I'd like you to understand that a strategic plan that is successful engages the entire school community in the process. If you're going to have a successful plan, it cannot be top down and have you expect to achieve success that way, in my experience. So it has to involve the whole community and ownership and buy-in. And I'll talk a little bit about how you can make that happen. And then finally, by the end, maybe there'll be some readiness for you to articulate your own school's next steps as a result of this workshop. Are you ready for strategic planning? Do you need to take a year to study things? Do you need to continue and complete your current plan? What do you need to do next? So I'm hoping that what you would know and be able to do as a result of our conversation tonight might be one of those or all of those four things.
Hey, Colleen,
Yes.
can I ask a question, please?
Sure, of
When you
course.
use the term strategic plan,
Yes.
and you there's the document, the book, what you've written, but when you're using it, you said something about buying into the strategic plan or something like that, and you mean the whole, or in the process
I'm
of the
meaning,
plan,
yes, I'm meaning the
all
whole
5
the
years
whole
of it, or
process.
the
Yes.
okay, okay,
I'm talking about the whole process, so we'll get our
okay, all right.
vocabulary. So I believe in a strategic planning process that ends up with a plan because of the reasons that are stated on the slide here. They can really galvanize your whole school community to become involved in raising the game for your school to go to the next level of excellence, whatever that level is for your school. I know that you've discovered, and I know I've discovered, that if everything stays the same year after year, you really are going to go backwards. You have to continue to move forward in planning and propelling people forward. So that's what a strategic plan will do. Can help you prioritize all of these goals that you may have. And as part of the process of strategic planning, we know you do a whole bunch of data collecting and looking at where your school is now, where are schools that are excellent, that may be a little bit ahead of you, where are schools that your students are going to maybe in your community and not coming to yours, and trying to find out why. So there's all of those pieces that'll help you prioritize the goals that will become part of your strategic plan. It includes everyone, it energizes your school, and it helps in whole system improvement. I think strategic planning is an exciting, thrilling part of being part of a school and part of school improvement. There are particular roles that I think are very important to understand as you engage in the strategic planning process to build your plan. The board has a pivotal role. The board must be present in all aspects as the plan is being developed, must participate because actually the accountability for the success of the plan, overall success of the plan, is the board's, to assure that the plan, once it is designed, is being implemented at all levels. So the board must be involved from the beginning of the strategic planning process all the way through till the plan is has ended and you're moving on to your next plan. One of the suggestions I have is that the board would have some board members who volunteer, 4 or 5 of them, to be part of some of the committees that design the goals, and that they attend those meetings, that they participate in those meetings, that they become part of the stakeholder groups that design the goals, that the leadership and administrative teams will design before they are then implemented. So the board, no doubt, has to put some money in to hire a facilitator of the strategic plan, of any kind of a strategic process. Because the board can't do the process and oversee the plans and go to all the meetings and do all of that. So you should no doubt hire a facilitator who will oversee the process of developing the plan. The board would initiate initial buy-in of the school community. So the best way, I think, to do that is to maybe invite the community in to take a look at the mission statement. And that is a great way for the board to introduce to the school community, parents, faculty, students, alum, the community at large, that a strategic planning process is, the school is going to embark on that. And we want everyone's buy-in. So let's take a look at our mission statement and see if it needs any changes. And you need a facilitator to guide that messy, wonderful meeting that might be with 200 people in an auditorium, all suggesting different things, and a good facilitator will be able to help that group of people get excited in contributing to either reviewing your mission statement and seeing, hey, maybe we like it, maybe we tweak it, Jeff, or maybe we decide that we need a new one. If the board were to come out and to say to the community, we want to begin the strategic planning process in our community, and what our vision is as the board is to bring our school to the next level of excellence as a Mercy school. Does our mission statement match that? And that might be a way to begin to let the community know that they're in for a great experience. They're part of the strategic planning process. So that would be the board. The board would oversee the process, hire a facilitator, participate in the teams, and then create the capacity for the community to be ready to embark on the strategic planning process. So that's your first level. And the board, there's no one more important in the process than the board. The second level and the second role would be the leadership and administrative team. So the board's gotten together, they've introduced to the community, we're going to do this plan and it's going to be great. It's going to be a 5-year plan. Here's the facilitator. And we first want to invite the community to meet. We'll give you a hot dog. We're going to meet in the gym. Then we're going to break up into teams and we're going to review our mission statement. And then we'll take all the input and then we'll show you what you've decided, and what we've decided will be the mission statement that will lead us and that will support the board's vision for our school moving forward for the next 5 years. Then come the teams that design the goals. What are the strategic goals? These are made up of your leadership teams, your administrator, your president, principals, deans, heads of finance, heads of facilities, and they have as many teams as you so suggest. There's probably an academic team. There's probably maybe a smaller team that might be finance, with your director of finance, with who maybe a parent that's got some that'll volunteer to be a member, a couple of community members, a board member, and so on. So you decide how many teams do we need? Who's going to be on the teams that would represent the stakeholders to design our goals? Our academic team had 19 people. There was a member of the board. There was the president, of course, the principal, a guidance counselor, kids, parents. It was heavy on teachers, that team. I think there were 7 of us, 8 of us. Depending on the team would be depending on the number. That team, led by the facilitators, would meet to then engage in the strategic planning process. And that's pretty boilerplate. You can go on Google and put in strategic planning process, and it's going to say, gather your data. What is your particular status where you are now? Where do you want to get to? What are your parameters? Do a SWOT analysis. What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? This is what your facilitator will do. We don't need to come up with this stuff. It's the same. No matter what organization you're in, the pieces are generally the same. That facilitator would lead these teams, each of the teams, through the process in order for them to design their goals. Our school had 5 teams. We had very intense meetings, and there were 8 of those for the academic team. The finance team didn't have quite so many. Facilities didn't have quite as many meetings. So it's different for each team, but your facilitator will lead through for them to have goals. They come out with the strategic goals. Okay, here are the goals. How many? Don't have more than 4. Maybe you have only 3. 8 is too many. How do you measure that? It's everybody's going off in 8 different directions. 4 good goals, 3 goals. Maybe a team has, in the next 5 years, they have 3 particular goals. Maybe that's what your finance team wants to do. Maybe your finance team wants to say one of the goals is to embrace best practices for financial sustainability of schools. So they have to study what those are. Then they have to, decide how to prioritize those. That's a pretty worthy goal for a team, to find out what best practices are. So you have to have the teams have enough time to gather data, to learn, to read some stuff, and discuss these pieces. So to reiterate, your board begins and remains attentive and walks through this whole process with the teams. Then your teams are established. They design the goals, and the goals have to be able to be measured. They have to be SMART goals. They have to be specific. They have to be measurable. They should be achievable. They should be results, pointed toward having a result. And then time bound, in a 5-year period, in a 3-year period. The final teams are your faculty and staff teams that implement these goals. And these should be volunteer teams for faculty for sure, and maybe even staff. But your head of finance is going to be on that team to implement the goal, the finance goals. And there may be, depending on how big your finance staff is, you might have the head of the finance committee from the board that's on that team. But these would be the people who would implement these goals. And you've got to let them have time to figure out how to implement them. And there should be somebody that internal who will lead each of these teams. And they shouldn't be, for example, the academic team, it shouldn't be the principal. The principal's got so much to do. They took me out of the classroom and I led the academic implementation of the strategic plan for our academic team. So we redid everything in the school, and I can tell you a little bit about that. But the head of finance should be the person who's accountable for those implementing those goals. And then there should be frequent reports back to the board. The board needs to say, all right, on the agenda for this meeting, we need to have an update on the strategic plan from each of the teams, each of the implementation teams. Yes, you can do that through the principal who might attend the board meetings, but it's fun. It was great when the board asked to see me. I'm a little boots on the ground, working my butt off, helping my teams implement things. It was great when I was invited to a board meeting to say, here's what we're doing so far. So I think the roles are really important, and the communication back to the board. The board has to make sure that people are accountable for the goals that have been designed by the leadership and administrative teams. So you've got the board role, the leadership and administrative role, and then the implementation teams. And that is kind of the structure of the plan moving forward. But there are other pieces as if we move on. This kind of puts into a little bit of a list. This is what your facilitator that the board hires for the strategic planning process will lead your school teams through these particular pieces. But there's more that the teams need to know that I think helped us a lot as we embarked on our plan. So Susan, you can go to the next slide here. There's got to be a feeling on your staff and your faculty that they are part of this. And that's the responsibility of the board and the school leadership to create this collaborative culture. And it is an intentional goal before you begin the strategic planning process to make sure that you've got that kind of culture in your school. Jeff has talked about, I think we're doing well. It feels like people are working well together, and that's great. Not all schools have that. you'll be successful in the strategic planning process if you've got a collaborative culture. If I, as a teacher, feel that if I get on a team to create some action plans that are going to implement goals that I'm going to be listened to, and if I feel that, I'm going to feel that I'm part of all of this. So, and it's risky. It's messy sometimes. It's very exciting, but creating a collaborative culture, and there's all sorts of workshops on that. I've led lots of workshops on how to create that collaborative culture. And if you want more information on any of these little pieces that I'm going to get into, I can pull some slides and put them together and go through Susan, and I can just get them to you, and you can see what these pieces are. But that's really important, and is that your culture, your people in your school feel that their contributions will be of value. Okay, Susan. This means audience participation. And it looks like that sometimes. What our school did was when it got down to, when the board, we got down to the leadership and administrative teams, I volunteered because I had done so much work outside as a consultant with boards. I thought this would be good. I want to volunteer to be on this academic team to design the goals because I know a little bit about something. Well, what happened was that I was asked to facilitate that team of 19 to design the goals. So I'm teaching 5 classes and doing 8 meetings in 6 months to design, lead a team of 19. Unbelievable. But it was awesome. We came up with 4 goals. And then what our school did was put me as teacher on special assignment to then lead the faculty in implementing our academic goals. So I was not only on a team that designed the goals, but then I became on a team that implemented them. And we had 130 teachers, and we had 83 teachers on the teams to implement our goals. So we got the buy-in, and then we got to work. And then I can go through one goal at some point to see how it went all the way from the top, all the way through. But it's audience participation. Love this slide. Had to share it with you. Let me give you an example of a goal that happened from the top. The board's vision was to take Our Lady of Mercy School for Young Women in Rochester, New York, to the next level of excellence. So there's the board's vision. They shared that with this 200 people or so, and we looked at our mission statement and saw where it aligned with the board's vision for the next level of excellence, and we tweaked it, and so we got a mission statement. And then what happened was we went to our leadership and administrative teams. So we had a finance team, we had a facilities team, we had a professional development team, which we finally dropped because they kind of went with something else. So we had 3 or 4 teams. The academic team was the team that I was on. We came up with 4 goals. And I'll just take one of them. When we looked at to take our school to the next level of excellence, and we looked at our mission statement in 2010, when we designed this plan, we did not think we were aligned with the mercy charism to the extent that we wanted our school to be. So we designed a goal that said, in the next 5 years, 100% of our students will demonstrate an informed commitment to advancing one of Mercy's critical concerns. That's goal number 4 from our academic team. We had no idea how that was going to be implemented. That wasn't our job. Our job was to make the goal. And we were like, okay. We put our 4 goals out to the faculty and staff, and we said, we're going to have some teams here that are going to try to implement these goals. Who wants to be on goal 4 team? And we got probably 10 or 11 teachers that wanted to try to implement that. Well, what happened was the implementation of that was that they designed a capstone project based on the critical concerns that each senior had to complete as a graduation requirement. Well, what did that mean? Well, in order to do that, we had to build up from backwards. We had to do backward design. What do the 6th graders know about critical concerns? Gee, not that much in 2010. How do we get them to learn? Then 7th grade. So then we had to do a scope and sequence. 6th graders learn about this. 7th graders learn about this critical concern. 8th grade here. Then we had a critical concerns day. That, one thing led to another in order to achieve that capstone goal. So they had to benchmark how that goal can be achieved. Then what does the capstone look like? Who designs that? You can see how putting that in the hands of the practitioners, the teachers, and the campus minister, the theology teachers took a big lead on this. That we've designed our model project that it still exists today, and panels, and it takes some time to do that. But that's the way one of our goals started, from the board, next level of excellence, then the mission statement, then the 4 goals of the academic team. This was the 4th. And then what happened was that each of our grade levels has an immersion in one or more of the critical concerns of the Sisters of Mercy, so much so that our seniors are so infused with what those are, what they mean, and have been involved in participating in projects and learning about them in all of the courses, that then they can choose what their capstone is going to be, and then it's presented to the community.
Colleen, can I go back for just 1 second?
Sure.
A little bit ago, you said 4 goals, and I was
Yes.
under the impression that 4 goals was for the whole entire school
No,
community, like under finance, under facilities, under mission. But now I hear you saying that under academics, you just had 4
yes,
goals.
we
Does
had
that mean
4
maybe
or-
finance
Yeah.
had 3 or 4 of their own?
No, finance only had 2 goals.
Okay, but everyone has their own goals. I see.
Yep, everybody has their own goals, so that each of the teams, and I think there were 4 teams, each had their own goals and then had who's going to implement them, and had their own data dashboards to do the accountability, and then would visit the board. These goals were shared and endorsed by the board. Of course, we didn't do any goals without, when we came up with the goals, the leadership and administrative teams, when they came up with the goals, they shared them with the board. Everything was shared and endorsed by the board. Board is huge in this. And
Colleen, then how did,
keep going.
I'm sorry, how
Yes,
did that get reported out, well, first of all, how long did that process take for that one goal? Was that
By
was that
year,
5?
by year, okay, we started in 2010. The first year, so those kids that started in 2010, in 2014, did a model project.
Okay. Okay.
We,
What kind of attrition was there on school leadership, on your committee, on the board during that process? Because as you're talking, we're blessed that we don't have a lot of attrition, but we've got board members with 3-year terms that roll off, that have bought into what we've decided to implement. Staff, people retire. It's a different animal almost every year. Were you the consistent piece
yes,
of that
so
goal?
was our principal and so was our president.
Okay.
So
Okay.
there was consistency there. And
Okay.
once the board has created the capacity and introduced the strategic planning process and has invited the community in, and then once the administrative and leadership teams have met to design the goals, and a board member then they can kind of go back to the board. Then people start presenting the implementation to the board. So that works out
Okay.
pretty well.
Okay. Okay. All right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, your school was truly blessed to have someone like you they took you out of the classroom.
Yeah, it was.
And
It cost some money.
I don't know how many schools could do that, and but it's great to see that something like that can be done.
It was quite a shock to me, because when I remember them bringing me Suzanne, who was our president, and Terry Quinn, who was our principal, and brought me into the office in March of the year where we had created the goals were created from the academic team. And I'm like, oh, yay, the goals are done. I'll be part of some team, dealing with them. And they asked me if I would lead that and implement that and become a curriculum coordinator. We didn't have one.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
We had a dean of academics, but
Mm-hmm.
we didn't have, because in order to bring the academic piece to the next level of excellence, you had to look at your curriculum. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Carrie will know that, you have to look at what you're teaching. So, and I'll show you some of the things that we did without adding a lot of things with people. You can only do so much during the year when you're teaching. You can't implement, you can't do a lot of this thinking work. That means you've got to bring people in the summer. And that means if you bring people in the summer, you need to pay them.
Yeah.
Because teachers are important, and even if it's minimal, and I'll tell you a little bit about how that happened. That was a shocker for teachers, but they were paid. Wow, you mean they're going to pay me for 18 hours of work on this? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, we
right. All right.
Okay. All right,
Thank
Susan.
you.
I like this little slide too. That answers that. If you've got a plan, you can't just stop where you are. You've got to keep tweaking,
Mm-hmm.
keep going, or it'll get stale. All right. There's a couple of things that really helped leaders, school leaders. I'm talking about board. I'm talking about president, principals, any of the leaders of the implementation teams, me. So these were things that I shared with all the other teams that were implementing, with finance, I felt like I was kind of the teaching learning person. So the first thing that I thought was really important is to understand change. People have to understand that we're asking in a strategic planning process for an organization to undergo change, and people do not like to change. Especially in education, teachers, we don't like it, we've done it, we're good at it, darn it, and we're doing it this way. No. You've probably got 20% of you that are scouts. They want to change. They're you know, they're great. They're ready to go. You got 60% that are pretty comfortable one way or another. Well, what? Let me look at it. I don't know. Then you've got 20%. Absolutely not. This is another new thing coming down the pike, and I'm not changing it. So the people that are the change agents, me, people that are heads of your committee boards that are asking for growth. I mean, growth is change. It's growing. I need to understand it. So Michael Fulon's the guru of navigating change. This little piece, there's about 4 pages in this. Then all you need to do is read it, and it's awesome. So, and if you need more on Michael Fulon and change, let Susan know. I've got thumbnail little checklists of how change works. But if you don't understand it, you get impatient. You want people to go too fast. You don't understand when people aggressively fight against you. It's hard for people. So how do you help them navigate that? And your leaders need to understand that and need to help people. So that's one piece that really helped us. Another thing that we did that was very helpful was we reimagined our internal committees. The board actually had to reimagine a board committee that were your strategic planning subset committee. It's a new committee of the board, and they were the people that volunteered. Okay, I'll take some months to work on these teams and to show up for these meetings when the administrative teams and the leadership teams are developing goals. I'll be on those teams. So repurpose your board to have some board members that are going to take ownership of being involved, directly involved in the process, at least in the goal setting piece. All our faculty meetings were repurposed, and we aligned them to our academic goals. So when we had every single monthly faculty meeting, there was a strategic planning piece in that meeting. We changed department chairs to curriculum leaders. That was huge for our faculty. But in order to make academic program changes, you had to analyze your curriculum. And that I had to have a team of people working with me to do that. So we made a new role called curriculum leader. No longer were you a department chair that would just okay a budget, that would just communicate stuff from the principal to your English department. That was done via email. We changed all of that. These became curriculum leaders, and we began to learn how to make curricular changes, what that is, and then they took it to their departments and would teach their departments through those meetings, and then we would align those with our faculty meetings. It was very intentional. That was my job, to align. What are the pieces that need to come? How do we bring this thing all together? How do we make our professional days align with our academic goals? So I always had to be ahead. Our curriculum council was always a little bit ahead of the faculty. Here's where we're going next. Then the faculty. Then we would have our faculty meetings that again would align with these. So it was very, very organized and intentional. Our summers, we had for all the summers that I worked on both plans, both this first one and then the second one before I retired, but we had summer work. I don't know if Mercy does anymore, but we had, each teacher had 18 hours of paid summer work where they would work on whatever are the initiative that was supporting the plan. We had great support from our board. Both, they were visually supportive, they were around, they gave us some money, you know, they had to get another teacher in the classroom to take my classes, because I left the classroom in March to get ready to propel this. I mean, so you know, they had to pay for a facilitator for the overall plan to at least get the plan, you know, started until we're in implementation. When you're in implementation, you don't need the facilitator anymore. You got your implementing teams and you move forward. So you can repurpose and align meetings. Huge. A principal can't do this. The principal's got too many other things to do, and neither can your president. Your dean of academics can't. You gotta have a point person, I think, for academics, in my opinion. But, you know, there's only so much money to go around, and I understand all those pieces too. So repurposing. So first, understanding change, repurposing committees, knowing that it's all right, keep moving on, Susan. Knowing that when we begin to implement, so we'd start, we've got some plans, our teams, our implementing teams are starting to do things, and we begin to do them, and everybody falls apart. All these complaining, oh my gosh. So when you start to implement things new, it just is a complete mess, because people are doing things that they're not used to doing. They're trying new things and they don't really know how to do them. They're trying to infuse a critical concern in grade 6 in an English class, and they've never taught that lesson before. It's a new thing I said I'm going to do, and I didn't do it very well. So people need to understand when they're implementing changes and starting to implement their actions that there may be a dip. And there probably will be. Just think about learning to ride a bike. You know, you're not so great when you start out. You fall down a lot, and you get better as you keep going. So expect that there'll be some dips, and be encouraging. Tell people this is what change is. Yep, we'll be awful at things for a little bit. It'll be messy for a while. That's okay. Leaders need to understand that. Another thing, so we've talked about navigating change, we've talked about repurposing committees, and now we're talking about adult learning. We need to understand that when we're working and implementing action plans for these goals, whatever the goals are, that our adults and our teams in our school are going to be learning new things, and adults learn differently from children. I can't teach kids the same way I would teach an adult. I had to learn to teach adults differently, and I learned that when I first worked with boards outside of, you know, the rural boards of education, because you have to teach adults. So I did a whole lot of work myself with adult learning. Your leaders need to know how adults learn. And I've got all sorts of work on it, but I've got a great, talking points on, 6 or 7 things that you need to have in place as you are working on your teams with your adults. If that's something that you would like, I can throw that on a slide and just let Susan know. And that really helped me. to understand. I'm talking about things like adults need to be validated. They're going to experience a dip of confidence when they try something new. They need humor, and so on. Hence my slides. You know, we laughed a lot. We laughed kind of a rueful laugh sometimes, like, oh, you know, but I think it's really important to know we're working with adults. They learn differently. So that's another key piece. It takes a while. That's for you, Jeff. You got to have that slide on your desk. Isn't that a great slide? We know this when we're in the classroom, but you know, we really want to go because as a board and as a leadership team, I mean, when these board members, when our president of our school got on our leadership teams to create the goals, she knew where we needed to go, but she had to let us find out where we needed to go first. And Carrie is smiling because you know where the school needs to go. You know, you'll be surprised every once in a while. You'll go, hey, gee, I hadn't thought of that. But most of the time, that's why you're the president of the school. You kind of know where it needs to go. But you need to bring people along to help them understand where it is and then where it needs to go. So this takes time, discussion. Too much too fast won't last. So it took some years, definitely. Curricular changes. We left a New York State Regents program because we said that we were a college prep school. So why don't all of our kids take a college course, an AP course before they leave? Huh? You tell teachers that? Well, we did. That was one of our goals, that each of our students would complete a college, an AP or dual credit course before graduation. You can imagine the work we had to put in with our courses leading up to the junior and senior year in order to have that happen. But we made it happen. It took us 4 years, but we made it happen. I believe this, you know, that to be excellent, you just can't coast. It's always intentional to remain excellent. And there's always something more to learn and something more to engage your school in. And we're all in this together. So I guess, you know, if I were to have your major components is the role, the importance of the board, a facilitator, hiring a facilitator to oversee, you know, to engage in this whole process, to understand the various roles of the stakeholders, to understand change, especially your leadership. I shared this with the whole faculty. You know why you're so grumpy? Because you're at stage 2 out of the 6 stages. And maybe some of us will never be at 6 because this person's at 6. They're always looking ahead. They're way, you know, they're in another universe. But people need to understand that it's okay. But they need to understand that you're part of a Mercy school. You're part of a school that wants to be excellent. So you have to do your part to continue to grow and develop and learn. So there's my shtick on strategic planning. I don't know if it's what you want, but I know that I know we were successful in our plan. And it was the most thrilling part of my whole career was that strategic plan, 2010 to 2015 at OLM. It was just great.
Awesome.
Well, it's nice to hear an example of something that succeeds. Thank you very much.